Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the fantasy football counselor. We're talking NFL Draft 2020. The draft is tomorrow. I'm excited. We're talking predictions for the draft, open discussion. I want to have some back and forth here. I got a lot of questions for Tom Santanello here. If you guys don't know who Tom is, he's been an NFL agent. He's totally immersed in the NFL. He knows this stuff, right? Tom, I want to get you in on this discussion talking about the NFL draft. I'm excited to get your insight, and I'm going to kind of give it a fantasy spin as well. Let's just dive in, man. There's so much we got to talk about and cover in regards to predictions and kind of what we think from a fantasy perspective. Some of these players are going to get drafted in the NFL. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me.
I'm excited, man. Where do we start? I mean, do we start with let's talk first round, really first round NFL draft. Go for let's talk about some picks there, including Joe Burrow. Clear cut. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Bengals are looking at Joe Burrow. I don't think there'll be any trades prior to the draft. They're going to nail that guy. They're going to get him. My question is AJ Green, fantasy impact. But for you, you know more of a realistic offensive scheme point of view. What's going to happen? What do you think? AJ Green, is he going to come back? Is he going to see his second win? I guess with Burrow being there.
I mean, he had the whole year off last year, so he's prime, to take in. But with a rookie quarterback, the success in the first year usually isn't there. It's hard for a rookie to come in and just sling it. They do have an offensive-minded coach, and I'm sure that's what they're going to try to do. But a lot of people thought they wouldn't have A.J. Green going into the season, but I think they're trying to, compete right away. They made some big free agent signings, which they usually don't do in Cincinnati. So I think he's definitely going to be the number one man and get the targets there.
Yeah,
definitely.
Man. What about Boyd? Again, Tom studies a lot of the offensive schemes. He studies football in general. He looks at talent. He scouts out talent. He looks at it. Boyd, is he going to take a level up this year? Is he that elite talent kind of wide receiver? I never thought he was kind of a wow me guy, but a lot of people are excited for fantasy football for Tyler Boyd. What do you think of Boyd this year? Does he take a step up with Burrow?
I mean, I think he can get a little bit better, produce a little more, but I don't think he's not a Pro Bowler. He's not a star player. He's just, he's a good wide receiver. That's what he is. So I want to say he's reached his ceiling probably, but with, you put a player like that in a better offense with a better quarterback, you're going to get a little more production. I mean, he's not going to turn into Julio Jones or any of those guys or anything close. But it really depends how Burrow comes in. I mean, he had the number one offensive line in college last year, or one of the top team in college last year. So he's going to have players playing around him that aren't that good. So it matters how the rest of the team gels. I mean, they have a good running back. I don't know how good the coach is and the play calling is going to be this year, but the whole system, the whole scheme, the players around him aren't going to be as good as they were in college. So Burrow, he may come in and struggle a little bit, but he checks off all the boxes now. It's just so hard to tell. I mean, you have two number one picks that are still free agents, Cam Newton and Clowney. So it's not a guarantee to be the number one pick and be successful.
Right. All right. Let's just keep running through that first round. We don't have to go in order. Let's just talk open discussion. I guess if you have any things you want to bring up,
I think the biggest thing is the wide receivers. There's a lot of teams that need.
Right. Let's talk wide receivers.
Obviously there's also teams with multiple first round picks, and with, teams like the Raiders, teams like the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Raiders and the Dolphins have multiple holes to fill. So they could easily go defense if a guy slips to them over a wide receiver, which would be smart in a way because there's so many wide receivers that have first round talent. The question is, if you have a chance to pick a Jerry Jeudy, is he that much better than the guys who are in that second tier? Or are all these top 5 or 6 receivers the same? Some people, around the league think CeeDee Lamb, he's head and cut above everyone else. Others think Jerry Jeudy. Now, if he's there when you're picking, if you're Miami, I think that's at 5. Or do you take like a stud tackle or a defensive player and wait for your next pick to get a wide receiver who could be just as good? Remember, Odell went. I know you're not a fan of him, but he's produced guys like him, Mike Evans. There's guys that go before all these guys all the time that just don't pan out. So the guys that could go at 10, 15 could be just as good as the guys that go at 5 or 6. And if you have a chance to get a tackle at 5 or 6, the same tackle or the level of tackle who's going to be there is not going to be the same. So with the wide receivers, there's so many of them. I mean, you could have 5 or 6 go in the first round. You could have 4. You just don't know. A lot of teams may also wait on wide receivers because the deepest wide receiver class ever. I remember when Sammy Watkins came out, that's the year Odell came out. And that was one of the best classes, I think, in 2014.
Right.
So the wide receiver play, it's just if you see one of these guys, Jerry Jeudy, who I think is the best in this class, is he going to be a difference maker right away? Or would you rather go with that, left tackle that you can't find anywhere else and you're not going to find in round 2 or even later in round 1?
Good points made. Really good points made. But I'm looking right now, the first person I see taking a receiver, I think the Vegas Raiders take a pick at 12. I don't know, because I think Miami at 5 is going to go Justin Herbert. Are you? First of all, let's stick on wide receivers. I don't want to stray.
Well, I think you got to worry about the trades too. Teams like Detroit, people have slid in the corner from Ohio State, Okuda there. I mean, to me, I think that's a team that needs more firepower. If I'm them, I trade down a couple picks, let someone trade up to take a Tua, to take somebody, and then I go Jerry Jeudy if I'm a team like that, because they just never had that offensive firepower to compete in that division and put up points. The wide receivers, like you said, you want to stick to wide receivers. I mean, how many teams in the top 10 not need a wide receiver? I mean, the Redskins, I know they got Terry McLaurin last year. They need one. The Lions, the Giants, the Dolphins, the Chargers. Chargers have a couple.
Raiders, 49ers need
Panthers, one. Cardinals, you can Broncos, say they're set now. The Jaguars, all these teams need wide receivers. Yeah. But what do they need? So it's just going to be one of the most unpredictable drafts in a long, long time, especially because of the current pandemic that we're in, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some shocks, but okay. So let's just say 12, right? Vegas Raiders. I think they need a wide receiver. They're not going to go anywhere else. They have to get one. Who do you think is the best fit? CeeDee Lamb, more of a wiry kind of wide receiver, strong, or a better route runner, Jerry Jeudy? I think, do they need a burner? Do they need a route runner? What is the best fit?
I mean, unfortunately, the Jets pick right before them, so I don't think they're going to have a choice. I think they're going to pick whoever's left, Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb. But Henry Ruggs, some teams have ahead of them, and he's a burner. Right. John Gruden runs that West Coast offense. Carr doesn't have a huge arm. I mean, I think they're going to go with a guy, I think they're going to go with a Jeudy or a CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee, I think, has a little, they both have speed. They can both do the same thing. I think they'll go with who's ever available out of those. I don't think they need a burner. I think they need a nice, pure route running number 1 receiver.
Hold on, let's debate a second, because I was talking to Walter Football. He doesn't think they go wide. The Jets go wide receiver. They go offensive tackle. He's looking at Mihai Becton, offensive tackle, because they got to protect Darnold. Now, going back to what you said, there's a ton of depth at wide receiver. So doesn't it make sense that the Jets go for an offensive guy? They got to protect Darnold. They got to open things up for Le'Veon Bell to run if he stays there. Are you certain you're almost certain they're going wide receiver, the Jets? What do you think?
I mean, nobody knows for certain, but I mean, I think they'd be better. They signed a couple offensive linemen. They still, could trade for someone like Trent Williams, which would be better if they trade like a date, maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick for Trent Williams and give him some money, because they don't have any weapons. I mean, they just don't have anybody. And I think, with the guys they signed, you get a rookie coming in. It depends also who gets picked ahead of them. If 2 or 3 offensive tackles, which is possible, go ahead of them, the guy from Georgia, guy from Alabama, if they're gone, I mean, you go with the best player available. And I think they may have to go best player available based on the need of tackle, based on the need of wide receiver.
I can see Jeudy ending up with the Jets. They want to probably get the best receiver. And again, he's one of the most polished. They could go, I see that wide receiver. Then the Raiders go someone like Ruggs or Lamb. And then the 49ers, do you think they're going to go wide receiver? I got Walter, because again, I had an episode with Walter. We looked at his picks. He's got Jerry Jeudy going to the 49ers. Do you think the 49ers are going to address the wide receiver position? They've got Debo, but they still don't have a true stud. I love Debo, but I think they're going to probably need a wide receiver as well. What do you think?
49ers? I mean, I think they do, but there's all talk. They're trying to trade out of that spot. They don't. I think they have 2 first-round picks, and they don't pick again until the 5th round or something like that. So I think they're going to try to trade down, and I think a team like that would trade down and take maybe what's it, Chenault from Colorado, the Arizona State. Maybe they trade back in the 1st round, pick up some more picks. They probably will trade. It all depends what happens ahead of them. That's the problem. If there's somebody left on the board that say, the Dolphins pick 18 and maybe they love, or the Cowboys 17, and maybe they love Jordan Love or whoever, and some team wants to trade up and throw their 2nd round in there, the 49ers will move back. They were a Super Bowl team last year. They lost a major asset on the D line. They got Marquise Goodwin on the trading block. So they're not, which I don't know if anyone's going to take them, but they're not desperate at wide receiver. They don't play the game where they need. Like, I mean, they were just fine last year with the team they had on their offense. That wasn't the problem last year. So I think they want to build more pieces to the put more pieces to the puzzle in there. And I think they could definitely. I mean, like I said, it depends. If Judy's available at 13, maybe they take a guy like that. But I can easily see them trading down.
I don't see any of these wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Judy, Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb. I don't see them getting past the first round because I'm looking at these teams. The Eagles need one, right? If it gets down to the Eagles, they're going to take a wide receiver at 21. I'm hearing they're looking at Justin Jefferson. Not sure if that's completely true, but man, I mean, even the Chiefs, man, they want to get up in the draft earlier and make some trades and target one of these wide receivers, right? It's crazy, man. I mean, everybody wants the wide receivers, but I don't see those four. Is it safe to say that those four aren't going to make it past the first round? Jefferson, Lamb, Judy, Ruggs.
Those four probably.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also another couple wide receivers that could go. A guy from Colorado, a guy from Arizona State. Those are late first round, but it also, you see surprises every year in the back of the first round. Rashad Penny a couple years ago for the Seahawks. You always see surprises, so you don't know who's going to be there. You also don't know if a team values Judy. I mean, are these guys worth top 10 picks? Who are the top 10 wide receivers that came out over the years? AJ Green, Amari Cooper, Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, they're Mike Williams, the other guy from Tennessee. Those guys. I'm sorry,
Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas was second round.
Oh, okay, that's right.
But those guys in the top 10 are considered can't miss all pros. And obviously you can miss, but those guys in the top 10 are you have to look the only guys that you really see as the can't miss in the top 10 are CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy. I don't know. I mean, Alabama with Ruggs, some people like him, but I mean, I just think as far as all Julio Jones style, AJ Green style players, you have Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, and then everyone else is below that. But you have to look at the tiers they're in. That's first tier. Then you have second tier. Those guys there's people say in this draft it's very deep as far as even picks from 20 to 50 could be. You could get just as good of a player at number 45 as you can at number 20. So there's not much of a difference in the receivers that you can get. Even Justin Jefferson, I don't know, the difference between him and a guy that could go Yeah, or even guys that could go a little after him in the second round. Michael Pittman out of USC. Who's saying he's not going to be a better player than Justin Jefferson?
All right, let's move on to running back real quickly here. Again, talking to Walter Football, because I did a similar type show with him, but we went pick by pick, and we had his feedback. Do you see any running backs going in the first round? I mean, Jonathan Taylor, phenomenal talent. I mean, his hands aren't as good as some of the other running backs in this class, but I'm hearing DeAndre Swift might go to the Dolphins. Is Taylor a first rounder? Let's kind of focus on him. I mean, he was an absolute beast in college. I mean, he was the focal point of his offense in college. So what do you think? Is he going to be the guy going in the first round? And where do you think he ends up?
I mean, personally, I think DeAndre Swift has a better chance to go in the first round. But like I said, it matters who's picking where, who needs what. I think running backs aren't valued as much anymore, as you know. If you get a guy in the first round who's worth it, he can cheap salary for 4 years, especially later in the first round, rather than signing a free agent. The Dolphins, I mean, I don't think they should go running back. They have too many holes to fill. They filled a lot in free agency, but I mean, I'd rather see them take 2 wide receivers in the first round than a running back. You got a lot of teams at the end of the first round that could, obviously people think the Chiefs need a running back. I mean, Seattle, they still don't have running backs, even though they've drafted some and signed some. They just don't have them. I mean, Tennessee probably needs someone to complement Henry. The Patriots took Sony Michel a couple years ago. He's played okay. Didn't play as well last year. I mean, the Vikings, you take someone for insurance on Dalvin Cook. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, in the first round, this draft is deep. It's hard to take a running back when you can fill up on some other quality guys that are gonna fall.
Seattle, you said no running back. What about Carson? You don't like him?
I mean, last year they had to sign Marshawn Lynch. They're just not reliable.
Yeah, he is.
The number one thing in the NFL is reliability. Tua's been hurt all the time. Is he worth a draft pick? If you can't get on the field, what good are you?
Right. But okay, so I know you don't play fantasy like me. You're more reality, right? So DeAndre Swift, if he ends up with the Dolphins, is he going to be in trouble in regards to production due to that offense? Because again, a lot of people have failed there. We've seen Kenny and Drake suck there. Jay Ajayi has sucked there. I mean, Ryan Tannehill has sucked there. Everybody has sucked in Miami. Do they have enough improvements? Are they going to make enough improvements to the O-line, to the team, to the quarterback, to the receivers to make DeAndre Swift a viable running back that's going to get production?
If they draft an offensive tackle at one of their first 2 picks,
okay.
I mean, they probably need a couple linemen before they can go in that direction. So without any more help on the line, I don't think he's going to be as successful. They also need an upgraded quarterback because they don't scare anybody the way they're going now. Even Kenyon Drake, he's not a great player, but he played better in Arizona than he did in Miami. Right. I think they have a new offensive coordinator in this year. They had a new coach last year. They're just changing the culture. I think they're just trying. I don't think they might be a team that goes best player available no matter what. I mean, they signed some big players and spent some big money, but they're also trying to just get good players that fit their culture and fit the team. So when you draft, the problem is, though, you don't expect these guys to make an impact from day one a lot of times. In the first round, yes, second round, maybe, but you want guys that can play there for 3-4 years, and then what are they going to end up being in a couple of years? Because most of these guys have to develop. How many rookies really come in and compete on day one? Usually takes over a year. So to impact the team from day one, obviously a running back can do that more than other players.
Right. I'm just taking a look here. I'm going off on a tangent here. I'm hearing what you're saying, but Detroit Lions, right? I think they want to trade up to 3. I don't know if they want to do that, but do you think, what are they going to, if they stay at 6 here, Isaiah
Detroit's
Simmons,
at 3.
Or Detroit's at 3 now? Okay, that's right.
No, they've been at 3, yeah.
Oh, they've been at 3. Sorry. Who do you got them taking?
I mean, I have no idea. Everyone's saying that they need help, but they do need a corner. I mean, they need a corner. They're probably going to go the kid from Ohio State. But, I mean, they're a team that would be easy to trade back a few spots. If a team like the Chargers want a quarterback over – it depends how you value Tua. Tua was the number 1 quarterback in this class coming into the year. So he was ahead of Burrow. It's just his injury history. If there's a team that thinks who he's going to be what he was supposed to be, then you can see Detroit going back to 5 or 6, taking what's that guy's name from Clemson, Isaiah Simmons.
Isaiah Simmons. Yeah, that's what Walter's got. That's why I said 6. I thought
but they're not going to take him at 3.
They're going to trade.
They could take him. He's one of the better players. The problem is safeties don't make that much of a difference unless you're elite, like an Ed Reed, that type of guy. You need a good safety that can contribute. The Patriots had Devin McCourty for years, but picking a safety that high usually, I mean, I don't know how often that really works out. Even Jamal Adams on the Jets, he may produce, but it's not working out there, obviously.
No, I was looking at my previous conversation with Walter. So he thinks that the Chargers go up to 3 and take Tua, and then Isaiah Simmons at 6 for Detroit. But yeah, Detroit needs help defensively, but also they don't have a running back. I mean, are they going to be able to get a viable running back in round 2? Very possible, right? Or whenever they're drafting.
I mean, they've needed a running back for 10 years.
Yeah.
I think they'll draft one at some point. I think Matt Patricia, I don't think he's too excited about drafting a running back early. I think he wants to he wants some tough players that can come in and compete. So, what are they got, an early 2nd round pick? You could see him taking somebody there. But they need a little more help. They have a good football team. I mean, they're a few pieces away. If they can get a good running back, they got the quarterback. I mean, they could be like Tennessee this year, come in and but they need to nail this number 3 pick or trade back for multiple picks. I mean, the Dolphins could move up, but I don't know. Dolphins have 3 first-round picks. I think they're more, unless you love Tua. And I mean, the problem is he's not a can't miss because of the injury history.
Right.
So it's a high risk. Like, look at the teams that moved up in the past. I think it was, who's the guy that's Mitch Trubisky. That was a horrible decision. Even Justin Herbert, he didn't even have a great year, even though they won. I think they won the Pac-12, but he didn't have a great year this year. These guys get overrated this time of the year. From years ago, Jake Locker, all these players that just never make it. You move up to draft quarterbacks just because you need one. It usually doesn't work out. Look at the Jared Goff. Like the Rams took him. Carson Wentz, I guess you can say it's worked out so far. They won a Super Bowl. Right. He led them most of the season, so that's a success. But all these other teams that move up, Trubisky, it's hard when you give up too much to move up that high. You better go after a guy like Chase Young, who's going to be there for 10 years. Even Clowney, when he was number 1, he wasn't, but there were a lot of question marks on him. So
with
it's
Miami,
hard.
Though, I think just going back to Miami, if they go quarterback, O-line, running back, this is going to be a whole new offense potentially. I'm excited to see what Miami could potentially do.
Yeah, I mean, they got Ryan Fitzpatrick, who'll probably come in as a starter. The problem is I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't even take a quarterback because they feel with Ryan Fitzpatrick they can compete. The Patriots lost Tom Brady. They're going to compete for that division title with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Listen, they got Jordan Love too, who some people love him, had a great sophomore season, didn't have a good year last year, has a lot of bad film. Somebody trade up to take him in the top 10? He could easily go number 8 or 9 or 10, or he could easily go in the second round or in the early second round. It's just too many unknowns with guys like that. A lot of people are comparing him to players like Pat Mahomes and that can come in and sling it. But he was at Utah. He didn't play that well last year. Right. Like guys that don't win in college, like, even Mitch Trubisky didn't win. Jay Cutler never won. These guys, it doesn't always translate to winning. It can't always translate to winning in the NFL, which is a problem. It has to be a red flag for guys that just can't win.
Okay, I want a crazy prediction. Hold on here. Let's add some. Where's my? There's my music. I want a crazy prediction, Tom. I want find something that people will say, okay, well, this is where our predictions went, but that came out of left field. Give me a crazy prediction, Tom. I want one. Putting you on the spot here. Something that people like. I didn't see that coming. That couldn't have happened. Why did they take him? Why did they move up? Just throw something out there that, that a team could possibly do that'll throw everything under the, the whole theory of everybody under the bus. What do you see here?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I guess it would have to involve, there's some predictions on some trades that can happen, but they're not going to be as sexy with Leonard Fournette or anything like that. I can see maybe a team like the Jaguars moving up to get a quarterback.
Really?
They don't have a quarterback. They got Minshew, but I don't think they're too sold on him.
I thought they bought into him a little bit, but
they got out of the Nick Foles deal. They found a sucker for Nick Foles. And you asked for a crazy prediction. I just saying it's weird because they got the same GM who's been there for years, although he didn't have control when Coughlin was there. But they're probably the worst drafting team in the last 10 years.
Right.
They always bomb on these top 10 picks. So I think maybe this is the year they should just lay it all out. And if they love Tua, trade up, trade a couple number ones and go up to number 2 or 3 in the draft. I don't know if Washington would trade number 2, but if Washington can get a couple number ones, or just go up to number 3 and take Tua, give it a shot.
Is there any shot in hell that Tua, Herbert, Tua or Herbert, they won't fall to 15, would they? No way. I don't
think those two will.
Okay, here's a crazy prediction.
Herbert had a good Senior Bowl, which helped him out a lot.
I heard there was a rumor. Again, you hear so many rumors with the NFL draft that the Broncos want Herbert.
No, I don't think so.
Why? There's
too many rumors. You can't believe anything you hear this week or last week. The Broncos like Drew Lock. He played really good at the end of last year. I don't think that's something they're going to do at all. They're going to get a little more help for Drew Lock, a couple more weapons for him.
I apologize. Another rumor I heard, it was kind of in the same discussion. It was the Giants that wanted Herbert more.
I think they're just trying to bait someone to trade up to take him so they can get draft picks because they sit at number 4?
Yeah.
They need help on the O-line. They need a lot of help. I just don't. They don't have any weapons either on the outside. They got Evan Ingram, who they've been dangling.
Right.
He's a great player, but he gets hurt too much. So if they can maybe, that's 2 separate discussions. But if they could pick up maybe a second round pick for Evan Ingram and take a wide receiver in round 2 and maybe move back a few slots, I think they're trying to get out of that spot and pick up some draft picks because it would only make sense. They took Daniel Jones. Honestly, if it's not like they have the number 1 pick and Burrow is there. Like Arizona took Rosen a couple years ago, then they took Kyler Murray. That's a different situation. You're talking about Justin Herbert he could easily be a bust. He didn't have a special. Watch his film last year. It wasn't special.
You know what's crazy? Arizona, I hate this organization. I just think they're greedy, dicks and stuff like that. What they did to David Johnson, they're just cutthroat. They're looking, believe it or not, I heard they're looking for another wide receiver. Did you hear the same thing? You've got DeAndre Hopkins.
You're going to hear a lot of things that aren't true at this time of the year. No, honestly, most of these teams don't even know. They have a board with 4 or 5 guys they probably like at that spot. And then if number 1's there, they're going to take him. If he's not, they're going to go to number 2. But if Arizona picks number 8, who do they have? DeAndre Hopkins. They do need to replace Larry Fitzgerald, and that was DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, they do definitely. I mean, they have an offensive coach, so you could see him picking another wide receiver, of course. I think they'd be better off doing it in round 2. But I mean, if you add a CeeDee Lamb to that, then to compete in that NFC West, which would you say is the toughest division in football? Possibly.
I'm not sold on a running back. I'm not sold on Kenyon Drake. He's never.
Yeah, running backs aren't gonna. They're not gonna take a running back that early. Obviously,
no.
I don't think you care about running backs too much at this point in Arizona. He's going to throw the ball, and he's going to throw it a lot. So you get, if you pay for if you draft somebody high, use them. If they're going to take a CeeDee Lamb, I could easily see that happening.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think they have holes on defense. Patrick Peterson's still there. Maybe he gets traded. That's something. He was on the trade block last. Well, he wanted to get traded last year, I believe, and he got suspended. Right. But I mean, they probably need a little more help on defense, I think, before they take a receiver. But I wouldn't be surprised if they took a receiver or an offensive lineman.
From a fantasy perspective, a lot of people drafting DeAndre Hopkins. They're saying, okay, DeAndre Hopkins is a top 3 to 5 wide receiver. They're thinking he's going to have the same impact he had with Deshaun Watson, 150 plus targets, a lot of volume. Is that going to translate in Arizona? But just before you answer that, note that the top target getter last year was Fitzgerald at 109 targets, and he's still there. So is there enough volume to go around for Hopkins to make him a viable fantasy top 5 wide receiver? I'm going to say no. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think so, but in order for that to happen, Fitzgerald, he's a year older, and listen, he's a hard worker, high character guy. He's probably in great shape. And he's there, but he's also a year older. I think, as you transition to make Hopkins, I mean, is definitely the number 1 there. So I think he can be. And one big reason is because of the offense they're in. I mean, they're going to throw the ball 40, 50 times a game, possibly. I mean, they're going to throw the ball. I mean, Kyler Murray is going to put up stats just because he's throwing the ball. I mean, Jameis Winston put up stats just because Bruce Arians threw the ball. It doesn't necessarily translate to wins. So I think there's enough to go around because he's going to throw the ball. And Fitzgerald, he's gradually going to get worse every year as he gets older, you would think.
Right.
That would be logical. So I think he can be very successful in that offense. And he's a very good player. And he's going to – they didn't – I mean, like if they draft another wide receiver, like – maybe they draft a guy that they can groom for a year to replace Fitzgerald and a guy that they can go deep to. Hopkins isn't a deep threat. I mean, I still think they need more speed there, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. That's why I heard they might be looking at a guy like Ruggs.
Yeah, that would fit that team pretty well. But if you can get a number 1 receiver, CeeDee Lamb, and then you have 2 number 1s for the next few years, they're going to extend Hopkins. He's got a few years left on his contract, but he wants a new deal. They're probably going to give him a new 5-year deal. So you give him maybe a 3-year, maybe it's an extension. You give him a 2-3-year extension. He's there for 4 or 5 years. Then you draft this kid in the top 10, Ruggs or CeeDee Lamb, and you got 2 number 1s on your team for 5 years. Boom. I mean, what are you gonna, who's gonna compete with that?
Nobody, right? So
just got to beef up the whole line.
Yeah.
The problem is, like you said, though, they pick at number 8. If you can get a Jedrick Willis, a difference maker, a Derek Brown or Auburn, you can't find those guys in round 2, but you can find a good receiver. But Kingsbury's about the offense, not about the defense.
Yeah, I mean, they had Keyshawn Johnson, Isabella, this and that. But again, I heard they do want someone at 8. But I heard they might be looking at a cornerback, Jeff Okudah.
He's not going to be there at 8.
You don't think Jeff's falling to 8?
No.
Really?
I mean, he's probably the second best defensive player in this draft. Either him or Derek Brown. But no. Well, Isaiah Simmons is good too, but he's a linebacker safety type of player.
Right.
No, a corner that can cover. No, he shouldn't be there at 8. Well,
this is assuming Carolina takes a defensive tackle like Derek Brown. Before that, you got Isaiah Simmons to the Lions, let's say Herbert to the. I think it makes sense that he could go at 8.
What about the Giants or Miami? I mean, you take a corner there.
Giants taking Wirfs, offensive tackle.
Says who?
Says that's the most viable thing. I was talking to Walter. It does
There's
make
no
sense.
Viable thing when you have multiple holes to fill.
Yeah.
Wirfs is good. He's not a can't miss player. Okudah is a better player, all around player. And in that situation, you take best available player. I'm not saying they will, because these teams make mistakes all the time. Hence why they can't win.
Right.
I mean, listen, could you go wrong with Wirfs? No. But if Okudah's there at 4, I mean, he's a better player, a better long-term player. He's predicted to make more all-pros. He's just a better player.
Right.
And he shut down corners. I mean, you're going against Philly. You're going against Washington, who, they just Washington. I mean, they got Haskins, a quarterback, but You got the Cowboys who are going to throw the ball in that division. You need a shutdown corner.
Right.
You definitely do. I'm not saying they don't need a tackle. They need help there, but they have a lot of holes to fill. In that situation, you go best player available. And if there's a guy that can go to 10 Pro Bowls, which Okuda is right below Chase Young, is probably in this draft as the next best available player.
Anyway,
according to a lot of people inside the league.
This is all hypothetical. Tomorrow we're going to find out. I'm excited about the draft because as soon as this draft happens, that's when everything unfolds. Depth charts start lining up. Then I start knowing who starts getting the volume for fantasy production, wide receivers, running backs. I'm excited, man. I can't wait till tomorrow. Where are you watching the draft? Do you watch it at home or do you hang out?
Just watch it at home.
Yeah.
Just watch it at home. And the first pick probably won't be any surprises. Redskins probably keep it and take Chase Young. I mean, then you just don't know what's going to happen after that. And it's all going to matter if a team wants one of those quarterback and is going to trade up. But if Detroit trades back a couple spots, I mean, or do they take the corner? Do they take a Derek Brown over there? Derek Brown's another great player out of Auburn who's a lot of people aren't talking about. You got a few offensive tackles, and a lot of people are flip-flopping on these tackles. You get Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. He might go, in the top 10. He's a very, very good player and better than some of these other guys. I mean, I know Becton's got some hype and he'll probably go high, but it also matters. Like when you got different GMs, who do they like better? Who fits the scheme better? Some teams do more zone blocking than other stuff. And someone might take one of these tackles and put them on the right. I mean, you need players, you need depth. I mean, the Dolphins, what if they're at number 5 and what if they don't love Tua because of the injury history? They didn't get to visit him. Or do you take your chance? I mean, they haven't had a franchise quarterback in a while. Do you go after Tua? I mean, you sit at number 5 and just, if they love Tua and thought he was going to be a difference maker, then you move up and you trade. I don't know what Detroit would want to move back 2 spots, though. That's the other question. You need somebody, Detroit could, if Tua was that good, I mean, what if Detroit takes him and grooms him for a couple years? Probably not, but I'm just saying, it's just an example. You just got to see how you value those players and another team, what they want to move back. Because then you're going to have, if the Chargers and the Dolphins both want to, or maybe they have Herbert the same. You just don't know. It's too much of a gamble, those players, I think, to move up.
I just want your final thoughts on the first round. I also want to talk about Rob Gronkowski here going to Tampa Bay because that was kind of breaking news. Any final thoughts here on the first round? Like, again, we had your prediction. We talked a little bit about offensive wide receivers, running backs. Any last thoughts on this first
Remember
round?
the other two, this important stuff is the teams that competed last year in the playoffs all pick at the end of the first round. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing is good teams that compete year in, year out, they don't necessarily rely on their first round pick to succeed the following year. You can look at it. You could just look at history. It speaks for itself. Usually even like the 49ers this year, their first round picks were years in the, Armstead, that was a few years ago. Just picks take a little bit while to develop. The other thing is trades in the bottom of the first round usually are pretty high. And that's where you're going to see guys who are slipping. Say it's a Jordan Love. If he slips that far and a team is sitting at 29 and he's there, do the Titans trade back so a team can, go ahead and get a player they want? You got teams like Baltimore at the end of the first round who could be the Super Bowl favorites this year, along with Kansas City. What are they, they're picking late in the draft. They usually do a good job picking. I mean, some people, they could take Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma. He'll fit that team really well. Patrick Queen out of LSU. They're going to take a difference maker at that spot, or they move back a little bit. Right. But you're going to see a lot of trading in the 20s, I think, I think you will see a lot of trading because guys that slip a little, some teams may move from say, what is it, 23? The Patriots pick at 23. They may move back from 23 to 25, just one spot. Or 2 spots for like maybe a 4th round pick because they don't care. They might have 5 guys on their team that they don't like. You just got so many guys in this 20 range that teams value as like, that just as good of a player can be had in the 30s or the 40s. Guys like Austin Jackson, who's the huge boomer bust prospect out of USC. Some people see him going 18 to the Dolphins, but I mean, you look at his film last year and, some GMs that you speak to are going to say he's not ready to play from day one. So a team that can afford to take somebody like that would be more like, maybe the Packers, the Niners, some teams that can groom them behind someone or put someone like that to the right side the first year. And then you start to see how things develop. I mean, I think the Patriots, I mean, that's the biggest question mark for everybody. That's because you were talking about with Gronk. What are they going to do at quarterback? I mean, I don't know how much ammunition they have to move up. Will they trade Edelman? Do they want to compete this year? He always wants to compete.
Right.
Obviously, they're in Belichick, but what do you do? He's probably trying to get younger. I mean, is he going to go with Stidham, or is he going to make a move for a quarterback?
I'm told from Patriots analyst, I was talking to him, and he's saying that, yes, they're sold on Stidham. They think he's the real deal. So
yeah, they like him, but I mean, everything's a guess within those walls. Nobody knows what's going on there. I mean, you got to look at their history, though. Over the past 7 years, they've taken 2 quarterbacks within the first 3 rounds, not named Tom Brady, obviously. They took Ryan Mallett. They took Jimmy Garoppolo. So they draft quarterbacks high. They value the backup quarterback position. And right now, I don't think they have a viable backup quarterback. So they drafted Garoppolo to be a backup for 4 years, just like they did with Ryan Mallett from Arkansas about 7-8 years ago. They drafted him to be a backup and with no intention to see the field. They had Matt Castle, who they flipped for a second-round pick. Jacoby Brissett, I was a second round, I'm not sure, with Matt Castle to the Chiefs when Brady was hurt. I mean, you got to understand, they value a backup quarterback more than, say, a starting linebacker, just because, I mean, look at Brissett when he came in a few years ago, then they flipped him. So if they can take a backup quarterback in the second or third round, to them, that's a position where you're going to, do they have Bobby Hoyer?
Right.
I mean, I still think they're going to take Brian Hoyer. I still think they're going to take a quarterback.
Right.
And just because they take one in the first, second, or third round doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to come in and I'm sure they'll compete, but not be starters. You know, they take backup quarterbacks early in the draft. Even the Redskins did it when they took RG3. They took Kirk Cousins, who ended up having a better career than RG3.
Right.
So backup quarterbacks are very hard to find good quality ones. I mean, I can't say I agree, but the Saints love, was it Taysom Hill?
Right.
I mean, backup quarterbacks are hard.
I can't stand that guy. Comes in and steals some love from Drew Brees for some fantasy plays. Let's wrap this up here. Gronkowski, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you think of the situation? Is he going to be the primary target there? Now we've got 3 solid targets. Everybody's thinking, Godwin and Evans are both going to be top 10 wide receivers. But again, Brady spreads the ball around. He kind of targets Gronkowski and then favors one receiver. It was Edelman and Gronk. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be Godwin? Is it going to be Evans? Is there going to be a battle? Is the honeymoon going to be over? They could be butting of heads between Evans and Brady, or do you think this is all going to work out into a happy fairy tale? I'm a bit of a conspiracy guy. I think they're just priming Brady for another Super Bowl.
Listen, the culture there is to win, not to put up stats. And that's what Brady did in New England for years. It's not about going to the Pro Bowl. It's about Super Bowls. So I don't think you can't worry about who's going to catch what ball. Gronkowski could have 10 for 150. Remember, he hasn't played a full season since 2011, so that's a big thing. But he had a year off to rest his body physically and mentally, so that's huge.
He was wrestling. I don't know how much rest he got in there.
Well, I mean, from football, it's different. I mean, I think he took off some weight. He just put it back on. But I don't think they care about the stats that you care about and the fantasy cares about. They just care about going to the Super Bowl and winning it. The other thing is Arians threw the ball more than anybody last year, didn't he? I mean, he's going to throw the ball. But I think if it's smart, I mean, I think they need to step up their running game. I really do.
They need a
they don't have much cap room. They don't have much money, but I don't think that team, the culture they're trying to build there, especially with Brady, people have known throughout the years, he doesn't care about throwing the ball to certain players. He's going to, he wants his go-to guys, and he's going to get a lot of deep balls to Mike Evans and open up the field. But he's definitely he had that Randy Moss years ago in New England, and I mean, he hasn't had that since, anything even remotely like that. And Evans is he's the best receiver on that team. OJ Howard, I can see them. I mean, Brady used 2 tight ends for a long time in New England.
They want to get rid of Howard. I heard they want to get rid of Howard.
They have Cameron Brate too. I mean, is he going to produce? Can he produce, or is he?
He could. Yeah, definitely in the red zone.
They might want to get rid of Howard, but I mean, if they think he can play, he was a first-round pick, I believe. He was supposed to be really good. If Brady if they see talent on tape that can be there, why wouldn't you go into the season with 2 tight ends, 2 top receivers? I mean, especially because Gronk hasn't played a full season since 2011. I don't think it would be I don't think it would be horrible if they kept OJ Howard. But you're right, though. He's going to spread the ball around and do what it takes to win. So I think Mike Evans will have a great season, and I think he will. But even last year, they got Mohamed Sanu at the deadline. Didn't work out. Edelman, he had an okay year, right? But when's the last time they had a really good fantasy player in New England?
Never. Like not recent.
Besides Brady, but Brady puts up the numbers.
Yeah, Brady, he's primed for a great season. I love Brady as a quarterback. Won this year. I might even get him you probably get him as a backup because he didn't have the greatest fantasy season last year, so people will grab him. But yeah, I'm staying away from all these guys because we don't know who he's going to.
Remember, Gronk was his number one receiver in New England.
He was.
He's not the number one receiver now. When it was 3rd and 10, I mean, when they were playing teams like the Steelers and those big games, when they were playing, they would line Gronk up on the outside. He would go to Gronk in double coverage just because that was his best option. That's changed now, and Brady's going to go to the open guy most of the time. He's not going to. He might force it once in a while to Gronk, but if Evans, Godwin, I mean, he's going to have just more weapons and more options. Right. So Gronk isn't going to be used the same way he was used in New England. No. He's not. I mean, he would take double coverage. I mean, but how are you going to do that with those other 2 guys on the outside? So I think he's just going to go to whoever. I mean, it sounds stupid to say whoever's open, but so many quarterbacks don't do that. Because some guys can't get open. If you have a number 1 receiver on the left and you got another guy on the right that sucks, he's not going to get open. So you double the other guy, you double a guy in the slot, and then what do you have? You have a guy playing one-on-one on the outside, and he's just not that good. He has no separation off the line. He can't get open. So if you can't get open, what good are you? You know what I mean? Sometimes you need to do that, though. You get a wide receiver that takes double coverage, right? And then on the other side, you get a wide receiver that he sucks against double coverage. He can't get open. He's not that at that level, but in one-on-one, a lot of quarterbacks dream for a one-on-one matchup. So I think, when you got a guy that's a one-on-one on the outside, that's when you got to see what you really have. But look at the teams who won the Super Bowls recently. I mean, even though New England won a couple years ago, they won in defense in the Super Bowl, but
they're running back. I'm not sold on Damian.
You think they're going to trade for Fournette?
I think they need a workhorse running back.
Here's my take. I think when you have a quarterback that's mobile, you need to ease off the quarterback being mobile, and you need to ease off. The more he drops back to pass it, the more chance he has to get hurt. And I know that's their game, but you look at Deshaun Watson in Houston. I mean, he made a miraculous run in the playoffs, but sooner or later, these guys just get hurt. Right. I mean, you just see it. The more a quarterback runs, the more chance it is to get hurt. The more he drops back. And I mean, listen, he doesn't have the best pocket presence as far as like a Brady or a Rodgers, who's just in there, been doing it for years. But Patrick Mahomes is probably the best player right now in the NFL, right? So I would protect him as much as I can. And I would try to transition. I mean, Andy Reid's a West Coast guy, quick releases, but also get the running back involved more. I think they need a running back that can catch the ball. LaShawn McCoy 6-7 years ago would have been a great fit in that offense because you could throw him the ball out of the backfield. You can give him the ball. I think they need somebody that can come in and do that on that team in order to minimize the injury risk. Mahomes was hurt last year for a few games, and look what happened. They didn't play well. It took them a few games after that to bounce back. So you have to protect the quarterback. If not, what good is the quarterback? So, and I don't mean just on the O-line. I mean on the offensive scheme. I mean, you can't throw the ball 50 times a game. These guys that just run too much, like Deshaun Watson learned that if you watch him earlier on. He even said that. He doesn't care or something like that. He was playing to win or playing to score. But they soon start. You got to play smart if you're a quarterback. If not, it won't last.